Why? I said wake up, motherfucker.
Heyo, Ian here for Sleep Deprivation, the Big SD, back with more World of Warcraft content and a brand new series of Classic WoW class guides designed to help you pick the right class for Classic WoW, because I'm a classy guy. If you're not familiar, which you shouldn't be because this is the first video of the series, then don't worry, because what I'm doing is I'm going over each one of the classes one by one, talking about the good things and the bad things to ultimately tell you why you should, or in some cases shouldn't, be playing that particular class. As you can tell right now, we're starting with the Mage, and if you're watching this in the future, and I have other videos out already, don't worry, I'll be leaving a link to the full playlist at the end of this video, as well as in the description below. With that being said though, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be breaking it down into 4 major categories. What you can expect in endgame PvE, PvP, leveling, and then those special nuggets that make mages feel extra unique. Starting off with endgame PvE. Now, obviously, mages are one of the 4 pure DPS classes in the game, so you're going to be doing some DPS. And if you're thinking, hey, I'm going to be firing fireballs right like this at your face, well, hold off there, because mages have a few restrictions that some other classes may not. For example, there's some enemies at endgame that have resistances to certain types of magic. Biggest example I can think of is you might find some enemies with resistance to fire magic in Molten Core. So what does that mean? Well, you're probably going to be playing a lot of Frost. And if you want to play fire, that might be something that's a little bit depressing. You're also going to be throwing around a lot of Frost bolts and not a whole lot else. Sadly, the Mage rotation is not that entertaining, but it is still a very fun class to play, and in terms of how much damage it does, yes, they are a pure DPS class, and you're thinking, hey, glass cannons, they should be the best DPS in the entire game. Sadly, they're not. As a mage, you are going to be doing well, but don't expect to see yourself at the top the entire time. Fortunately for you, though, you do have some of the better utility in the game, in the fact that not only are you the only class to provide the intellect buff, but you are also the only class in the game with the most reliable form of crowd control that exists, polymorph. This will make you very useful not only in raids, but in dungeons as well. Other than that, there's not a whole lot to say about the endgame PvE, so let's move on to PvP. Now in PvP, this is where things get really interesting and honestly really fun for a mage, because you have 2 different options that you can look into at endgame for the most part, and of course there's always other stuff you can play around with too, but with those endgame options, you're going to be looking at either a Frost spec, where you're running around with a ton of control, slowing enemies down, rooting them in place, being able to constantly escape. You're a little bit more versatile, or you can go with the 3-minute mage. The mage built around going deep into the arcane tree, getting presence of mind for instant cast spells, arcane power to boost your overall damage, and then Pyroblast, which is an incredibly long cooldown spell, but it hits really fucking hard. Sorry, not cooldown, cast time. So this spec is basically built around being able to just annihilate enemies once every 3 minutes. That's why it's called the 3-minute mage, aka Palm Pyro. That spec doesn't really require any skill, doesn't really require any talent, but holy crap, is it fun. If you play it, you're going to have a lot of fun. You just don't expect to be too useful once you blow your load. But overall, in general, mages have a lot of different tools that can help them out. They have Blink to be able to get away from enemies, Frost Nova to root them in place if they're chasing after them. They can use Frost Bolts to slow enemies down, even if they are fire. And to top it all off, they have Polymorph, like I mentioned earlier. Not only is it good in PvE, also good in PvP as well. The good thing about it in PvP, though, is that it gives you a little bit more control to be able to not only stall your enemy for a while, but also help you position yourself into a better position. Boy, am I awesome and redundant. All in all, mages have a really fun time when it comes to PvP. So let's talk leveling. When it comes to a mage, they're not the hardest class to level, but they're not also the easiest class to level either. I will say this though, they are the fastest class to level, and that's pretty much built entirely around their ability to AoE grind later on in the game. They can kill a bunch of mobs really fast way more effectively than any other class in the game. Most people in general, they're going to be wanting to fight 1, maybe 2 enemies at a time, and if they're going nuts, maybe take on 3 or 4 at most, but at that point you're probably crazy or you're in a group with someone. But with that being said, mages on the other hand, given the right situation, can take on 10, 15, even 20 enemies at once in AoE grinding. This is something unique to them that allows them to level so much faster than any other class. But even outside of leveling quickly, mages do still have some effective ways to be able to level, especially in the earlier levels when that AoE grinding isn't available to them. You see, you're likely going to be leveling as Frost, so you're not going to be taking a whole lot of damage because you're going to be slowing enemies down, and then when they get close to you, you can hit them with a Frost Nova to root them, or blink away to escape some more distance as well. On top of all that, if you run into 2 enemies, you can polymorph one, attack the other. And if you're running low on mana, you make your own water, so that's not a problem there as well. But with that being said, mages are heavily reliant on their mana. If you run out of mana in a fight, you're pretty boned. It is not a good thing. Yes, you can wand, or in some cases do what I'm about to do right here and melee this guy in the face. But at that point, that's not a good place for you. That is not something you want to be doing on a regular basis. With that being said, you do have a lot of control, which allows you to decently level. Not the most overpowered, but not the hardest as well. There is one other thing that gives mages a really good advantage in regards to leveling, and that's the fact that they're not as gear reliant as some of the other classes. Yes, gear is still going to be useful for them, but not as much as other classes that rely on their gear a lot more for their damage. You see, unlike classes that use strength or agility to boost their stats, mages run on intellect, and intellect doesn't increase your spell damage. Spell damage is only increased by, surprise, bonuses to spell damage, and that is few and far between on gear when you're leveling up. So, what do the stats do for a mage then? Well, intellect increases your mana and crit a little bit, I guess. Spirit increases your mana regeneration, and stamina increases, well, your health, your ability to take hits. So as a mage, you're not really taking that many hits, so the stamina is not that big of a deal. Okay. And the intellect and spirit basically just make it so you have more mana and regenerate it faster, ultimately meaning the stats make it so that you can fight for longer. And, well, as a mage, you're pretty much a glass cannon anyways, so you're focused around killing things quickly. And the gear doesn't help you kill it any quicker, it just helps you fight for longer. So you already make your own water and food, so you can regenerate all the health and mana that you lose during a fight, so as long as you don't run out of mana in your short fights, you're going to be fine. Now, obviously, there's going to be situations where you wish you had more intellect, or wish you had more spirit, or more stamina. I'm not saying it's not useful at all. I'm just saying it is significantly less mandatory for a mage while leveling than it is for other classes. Especially when you take into consideration that they don't get really any bonuses on their damage from their weapon damage. So if you have a level 20 weapon versus a level 1 weapon, if you're meleeing with it, first of all, you're probably screwed. Don't be doing that. But it's not going to make that big of a difference, and the stats aren't going to make that big of a difference if you're killing it in a couple of spells anyway. So what does this mean for a mage? This means that rather than do things that you have to go out of your way to acquire gear, say run a dungeon a few more times to get certain pieces of loot because they're drastically going to help you while leveling, you can instead run around and do the things that are important to leveling, the things that give you more experience. So you could, example, do that AoE grinding that I was telling you about. It may not give you the best gear, but damn, it's going to give you good experience. Meanwhile, other classes are stuck running dungeons to hopefully get a better weapon and some gear so they don't die. All in all, mages are very unique when it comes to leveling and are going to have themselves a pretty good time. So now let's talk about those special nuggets, the things that make a mage, the things that make a mage extra unique. As I already mentioned, they have the only intellect buff in the game, and they also have polymorph. We already know what that does, we already know how awesome it is. What else can I tell you about a mage? Well, they make their own food and water. They can also make it for other people, which means you might be treated as a vending machine sometimes, but hey, it's something unique to your class. They also have Blink, and I mentioned that Blink is going to be particularly useful while leveling. because you can escape things, but it's also good while you're not fighting. You see, Blink has the added advantage of saving travel time, and when you save travel time, that's one of the biggest issues with the game in Classic WoW. You're going to spend a lot of time traveling places, and being able to save that travel time is tremendous. It's going to be something you're going to be very grateful for, and yeah, you don't get to do it that often, but it saves you a little bit of time. It's useful. But finally, I saved the best for last. Mages have portals, and portals are probably one of the biggest time savers in the entire game, not only for you, but for other people. And as the goblins often say, time is money. If you're spending time traveling, you could be using that time towards something else, like say, killing an enemy to get experience, or doing a quest, or doing a dungeon. But on the flip side, time is money means something completely different to a mage with their portals. Because you can use them to help other people out, people will pay you for your portals. Your portals basically are a free teleport to other cities. People are going to want to do that. A very good example are people that say, make a night elf and want to go to the human area, which is a very common thing. The human area in alliance leveling is a lot easier to deal with. Now, if you're making a night elf, you're starting way the fuck over here. You run over to Darnassus, then you have to take the boat across into Darkshore, then you take another boat all the way over to Menethil Harbor, run all the way through Menethil Harbor just to get into Dunmore to finally get to Ironforge, take the tram from Ironforge to Stormwind, or you have a mage just port you from Darnassus to Stormwind. Seems pretty straightforward as to what I would rather do, and it saves them a ton of time and a ton of dying, because running through the wetlands as a level 1 or level 4 or whatever, that sucks. You're gonna die a lot. Those enemies are way out of your level, and it's a long ass run full of a lot of death, and people are willing to pay like the gold or whatever the price is going for on your server for that. So if you want to be lazy and make some money, or just chillax and watch a fucking video or some Netflix and make some money, just sit in a major city and sell portals. It's free money. And if you need to justify it, say, well, I have to use a regent, whatever, people will pay you. People will pay you for the convenience because you are the only one that can provide it. So yeah, a mage has some pretty sweet special nuggets for them. So what do you guys think? Do you want to play a mage? Are you currently playing a mage? Let me know in the comments section below, and be sure to like the video, subscribe, and click the bell so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. I got lots of World of Warcraft content coming up, including the remaining videos in this series. And yes, I will not just be doing Classic, but I'll also be doing some retail, so if you don't like all the Classic and would rather see retail, stay tuned because there's more of that to come. As always, thank you so much for watching. I'm Ian from Sleep Deprivation dozing off, and I will catch you guys in the next video when I wake up.